A hush falls over the virtual auditorium as soft piano notes drift in, inviting every listener into an evening of intrigue. The narrator's voice, warm and commanding, welcomes you into a world where gilded ballrooms and secret rendezvous converge. Before we begin, the narrator intones, tell me where you're listening from in the comments below. Let the world know who you are, and together we'll paint this story in all its colors. The notes swell, a gentle crescendo that feels like a heartbeat, steady and insistent. Another layer of melody, cello this time, threads through the piano's warmth as the narrator leans in, conspiratorial. If you love billionaire drama, hit like and subscribe. Join our circle of dreamers and schemers, because tonight, every secret you uncover will feel like a stolen treasure. A soft click echoes, as if the sound of a subscription bell, and the music retreats, leaving a charged silence. In that silence, the faint patter of rain against a penthouse window emerges. Each drop glistens like a teardrop of crystal, reminding listeners that even the richest worlds tremble under the weight of human emotion. The narrator's tone shifts to something more intimate, as if leaning over a friend's shoulder. Tonight's tale isn't just about wealth or power. It's about the collision of hope and fear, art and ambition, and the fragile thread that binds two souls from opposite ends of the social spectrum. A candle flickers to life in complete darkness, its flame dancing against invisible walls. The narrator describes how that flicker mirrors our own fleeting moments of courage, when we risk everything for love, for art, for one perfect moment that changes the course of our lives. Stay with us, the voice urges, because somewhere between these words lies the pulse of destiny. The music retreats again, leaving room for silence heavier than sound. Then, as if on cue, a single note rings out like the toll of a distant bell, echoing the promise of transformation. Are you ready? The narrator asks, soft but inexorable. Let us step together into the gilded shadows of a story that begins with a single misstep and ends with a choice that no one else can make. Across the darkness, more piano rises, a gentle undercurrent that feels like the slightest tremor before an earthquake. Listeners can almost taste the anticipation in the air, like champagne on the tongue. If you're with us, the narrator whispers, breathe in that tension, let it anchor you. Because the richest tapestry of human longing begins with a single thread, and tonight we pull it together. The music swells once more, richer now, as if a full string quartet has joined. Each instrument weaves around the invitation. Comment below where you're watching from. Strike the like button, subscribe, and let the world know you've claimed a seat at our banquet of secrets. In that moment, the story's threshold trembles, ready to part, if only the listener will step through. A final chord strikes, resonant and lingering, before the quartet fades into silence. The narrator lets the pause stretch, heavy with expectation. Then, in a final, breathy exhale, welcome to the saga of Elle Navarro and Adrian Blackwood, where art ignites power and power ignites passion. Your front row seat awaits. As the last echo of music drifts away, a distant thunder rolls, a promise of storms yet to come. And in that pregnant pause, listeners hold their breath, caught between the safety of the real world and the magnetic pull of a story that is about to unfold. What will they discover when the curtain rises? A hush gives way to light as a sweeping camera reveals a grand ballroom hung with crystal chandeliers that drip diamonds of light onto marble floors, their veins swirling like frozen rivers. Pillars of ivory rise toward a painted ceiling where cherubs drift across frescoed skies. The scent of white roses and polished oak drifts through the air, mingling with the soft hum of conversation and the rustle of silk. Each footstep echoes elegance. At the ballroom's center, a series of towering canvases stands like silent sentinels, each one a mosaic of vivid hues and secret meanings. Guests glide from piece to piece, murmuring about brushstroke brilliance and hidden symbolism. Yet none of these guests see the trembling artist at the periphery, sketchbook clutched against her heart. Elle Navarro, garbed in a simple, pale gown that belies the extravagance around her, feels every curious gaze as a pinprick of anxiety. Soft music tinkles as a pianist at the far end of the hall runs her fingers over ivory keys, coaxing a melody of longing and promise. The notes weave through the guests, drawing them to the art, but each time they pause, they linger at Elle's canvases, unaware of the gentle soul whose hands brought them to life. A whisper ripples through the crowd. Who is this newcomer? Yet no one quite knows. Marble floors reflect ornate mirrors that line the walls, doubling the scene into a kaleidoscope of gowns and jewels. Silver trays bearing crystal flutes of champagne drift through clusters of societies, elite, magnates of finance, heirs to dynasties, and socialites whose names could fill volumes. They toast to ambition, to legacy, to liaisons yet undiscovered. Yet among them, Elle stands out not for what she carries on her arm, but for what she holds in her heart, hope. Our narrator moves closer, voice hushed and reverent. In a room where privilege speaks louder than words, she whispers with color. Her art doesn't scream, it sings. Listeners can almost hear the soft scratch of charcoal on canvas as Elle adds a final stroke. Her chest tightens. She wonders, will these strangers recognize the soul that poured itself into ink and paint? A sudden murmur crescendos into a gasp as a massive canvas unmasks itself, revealing a sweeping landscape of cobalt sky and golden dunes. But etched along its horizon is a silhouette that chills the blood, a lone figure standing atop a vessel of steel. Whispers race. That's not just a painting, that's a vision. Yet the artist herself feels a stab of vertigo. She's never painted such a scene. How did her private dreams slip into public view? The pianist's melody falters, notes scattering like startled birds. A hush cascades through the crowd, all eyes fixated on the painting, and on Elle, whose blood runs cold. The narrator's voice, soft as a confession, asks, "What would you do if your most intimate dream were stolen, laid bare before the world? Could you claim it as your own, or would fear steal your tongue?" No one moves. Silk rustles, jewels glimmer. Champagne glasses hover at lips. Time seems to pause on that single frame, that single moment when art becomes shockwave. Elle's heart pounds like a warning drum in her chest. She knows she must speak or risk losing everything. And in that fermented breath of anticipation, the scene cuts to black. A final note lingers. Will she dare to claim her dream? Salt tangs in the air as the camera drifts away from grandeur and back toward the humble coastline where Elle Navarro's story truly began. Waves rush onto a sand-scoured dock where a weathered café clings to old wood pilings. A bell over the door tinkles as Elle, in paint-splattered jeans and a faded denim apron, steps inside. The chatter here is softer, the light warmer, the laughter easier. This was her first stage. Inhale the aroma of freshly ground coffee and of possibility. Listeners can almost taste the bittersweet espresso Elle crafted each morning before dawn. Faint jazz notes spilled from a battered radio atop the counter, carrying tales of smoky lounges and distant streets. There, she learned that art has many voices. The clank of cups, the sigh of steam, the breathless hush between chords. Jeans frayed at the knees, Elle moved with practiced ease, balancing a tray of croissants and cappuccinos for patrons who became part audience, part family. The barista's rhythm was her first gallery, her first applause. Each tip in the jar whispered encouragement. You can become more. But alongside admiration lurked the ache of scarcity. Bills piled by the register. Grants slipped through her fingers like water. Night after night, Elle retreated to the back room, her sanctuary of plaster-dusted floors and half-finished canvases. A single bulb cast long shadows on the high ceiling. There, she sketched the dreams that danced in her mind. Storms rolling in over skyscrapers, lovers touching hands across a gallery floor, lost souls finding refuge in color. Each stroke was a prayer, each painting a promise. Her childhood glimmers in memory. Salt in her hair as she chased gulls on the pier, her mother's laughter echoing over rolling waves. A worn leather satchel held her mother's old brushes, tools more precious than gold. Beneath those memories lay the ache of want. A scholarship denied, a mentor who vanished, a gallery door that never opened. Yet through it all, Elle's spirit burned brighter than the noonday sun. In the hush of that studio, she poured herself onto canvas. A swirl of crimson for heartbreak, a wash of violet for hope, a jagged slash of black for lingering fear. It was raw, unpolished, alive. And though the world beyond her cafe walls slept, she stayed awake, an emissary for her own potential, a lone artist chasing brilliance in the dark. Listeners feel the tension of each passing year. The cafes that closed, the friends who left for bigger cities, the nights she collapsed beside her easel, paintbrush in hand, tears mingling with pigment. But they also feel the small victories. A local magazine praising her work, a stranger buying a piece for the price of a week's groceries, a single moment when someone looked at her art and saw themselves reflected. The narrator's voice softens. She learned that a life of creation demands risk, that every failure can be a stepping stone, that the heart, like clay, can be reshaped by fire. And as the scene draws to its close, we see Elle fastening a paint-flecked jacket, determination gleaming in her eyes. She picks up her phone and dials a number she's never dared call. Her finger hovers above the send button for a message inviting her to the grand gala, an event she never imagined attending, let alone impacting. Could this be the moment her world shifts forever? And then, silence. A final breath. A single question. If you stood on the edge of your dream, would you dare step forward? The city's neon glow pulses through rain-slick streets as Elle Navarro steps onto the curb, umbrella in hand and heart pounding in her chest. She peers down at her phone, an invitation glowing on the screen. Meet me at the entrance to the Montgomery Hotel at 9. No name, no explanation, just the address and a time. Curiosity and dread swirl in equal measure. Taxi cabs honk their engines, their lights streaking through the night like comets. Elle pulls her coat tighter, the fabric damp against her fingertips. In this world, people pay fortunes for discretion and safety. Yet here she stands, alone, summoned by a mystery that feels both electric and terrifying. Her breath clouds in the air. Each exhale tastes of anticipation. She raises a trembling hand to hail a rideshare, her only plan to get home after the gala. Moments later, a sleek black SUV glides to a stop. Its windows are tinted, the engine purring like a resting panther. The driver steps out, bowing his head in polite greeting. She hesitates, glancing at the license plate that matches her app, and eases onto the smooth leather seat. A faint hum of ozone drifts through the closed windows. But as the SUV pulls away from the curb, the engine growls with sudden urgency. It accelerates past the speed limit, weaving through traffic with unnerving precision. Elle's pulse electrifies her veins. "Excuse me," she calls over the roar. "This isn't the route I requested." A low voice from the front seat replies, clipped and professional. "I'm sorry, miss, there's been a change and urgent reroute." Her phone buzzes with an incoming call. She fumbles for it, eyes darting through the tinted glass for a glimpse of neon signs. The number is blocked. She answers. "Miss Navarro," the voice says, "you've been invited to something extraordinary. Remain calm." The line goes dead. In that fleeting instant, the SUV veers sharply, tires hissing against slick asphalt. Panic spikes in her chest. She grips the door handle. "Let me out," she pleads, but the lock clicks. She's trapped. The city blurs outside as the SUV hurtles toward an unknown destination. Every instinct screams danger, but curiosity, an artist's constant companion, holds her gaze forward. Minutes stretch like hours. Then, without warning, the SUV screeches into an underground garage. Lights flicker overhead. The engine cuts. Silence crashes around her. The door swings open, revealing a vast space lined with polished vehicles that gleam like trophies in the dim light. A tall figure stands bathed in shadow at the far end, impossibly still, impossibly commanding. Elle's breath catches. She steps out onto the concrete floor, her shoes echoing against walls of steel. She clamps her arms around herself, shivering, not entirely from cold. The figure steps forward into a lone shaft of light. Tailored suit, commanding posture, eyes as fathomless as midnight oceans. Adrian Blackwood. His voice, when it comes, is velvet and steel. "I didn't mean to frighten you," he says, advancing with measured grace. "But I needed to speak with you before the world discovered your gift." His gaze drifts to the canvases arrayed behind him, her paintings, lined up like prisoners awaiting judgment. Elle's jaw drops. How did this stranger acquire her most private works? Thunder rumbles above, the first drumbeat of an approaching storm. Elle's heart hammers in her chest as she takes a single step forward. "Who are you?" she whispers. But before he can answer, the lights flicker, plunging the garage into darkness. In that fleeting abyss, Elle tastes adrenaline and fear, and wonders if she has just boarded a journey from which there is no return. A single light snaps back on. Adrian stands closer now, his silhouette etched in sharp relief. The door to the tunnel beyond yawns open, as if beckoning her toward a destiny she never imagined. And here the scene cuts, leaving listeners suspended on the edge of revelation and dread, hearts racing with the promise of secrets about to unfold. What choice will Elle make in the darkness? What would you do in Elle's shoes? Comment below. Moonlight and adrenaline still pulsed through Elle's veins as she stumbled back into her apartment, the door clicking shut behind her with hollow finality. The walls, once a comforting canvas of her own creation, now closed in like silent witnesses to her terror. She leaned against the door, her breath ragged, heartbeat pounding like a frantic drum. In the eerie quiet, every creak of floorboard sounded like footsteps at her heels. She sank to the floor, paint-splattered jeans pooling around her ankles. The taste of leather and machine oil lingered in her mouth, mingling with the bitter tang of fear. What had happened in that underground garage felt impossible, an otherworldly collision of power and art. And at its center stood Adrian Blackwood, calm, commanding, inexplicable. Why had he risked so much just to speak with her? Her phone buzzed on the coffee table, screen lighting the dim room. One message, 2 words. "Did you survive?" It was from Luna, her best friend and fiercest protector. Elle's fingers trembled as she typed back, "I'm alive," but terrified. She hit send, then buried her face in her knees. Tears burned behind her eyelids. The expectation of creative struggle seemed trivial now, eclipsed by the raw reality that her art had become a beacon, one that powerful forces were racing toward. Despite the adrenaline crash, questions rattled her mind like broken glass. What else did Adrian know of her work? Whose mistake had placed her in that car? And most urgently, what did he want from her? A knock sounded at her door, precise and deliberate. Elle jolted upright, paintbrush in one hand, phone clutched in the other. "Elle," Luna's voice drifted through the wood. "Let me in." She heard the key twist, the door swinging open, and relief washed over her like a warm tide. Luna swept in, hands laden with a steaming mug of chamomile tea. She set it beside Elle and wrapped her arms around her trembling shoulders. "Tell me everything," she urged softly. Elle recounted the rideshare app, the tinted SUV, the growl of its engine, and above all, Adrian's silhouette stepping from the shadows. Luna's brow furrowed with each detail. "He's dangerous," she whispered, "and he's rich enough to buy his way out of any scandal. But he said he'd protect me," Elle protested, wiping tears on her sleeve. "He said before the world discovers your gift." Her voice cracked on the last word. Luna's jaw tightened. "Gifts don't need guns to protect them, and billionaires don't do favors for artists without a hidden agenda." She frowned at the steaming tea. "Here, drink this before you convince yourself he's a knight in a bespoke suit." Uneasily, Elle sipped, the floral notes grounding her. Steam curled in the air like ghostly fingers. "I don't know what he wants," she admitted, "but he's the first person to believe in my art." Luna's fingers brushed Elle's paint-speckled hand. "Belief can be a gift or a weapon. You need clarity. Tomorrow you call his office, demand answers." Her tone brooked no argument. That night, Elle lay awake in the dim glow of fairy lights, mind replaying every detail. The way his jaw tightened, the curve of his coat as he draped it over her shoulders, the flicker of vulnerability in his eyes when he spoke of her art. Was it possible that beneath his polished armor lay a man as lost as she'd ever felt? Thunder rumbled overhead, echoing the storm gathering in her chest. In the darkness, she whispered to herself, "I will find out what he wants, and why my art calls to him." Daylight fractured through Venetian blinds, casting striped shadows across Adrian Blackwood's austere office. Floor to ceiling, windows revealed the city's skyline, gleaming towers that reflected both sunlight and ambition. Behind a vast mahogany desk, Adrian stood motionless, fingers interlaced behind his back, watching the world wake beneath him. His thoughts replayed last night's encounter, how Elle Navarro's eyes had widened at the sight of her own paintings, how her voice had cracked with fear, how the fragile strength in her silhouette called to something buried deep within him. He turned away from the window, stepping toward a sleek conference table where his chief of security, Marcus, stood ready with dossiers. "Were there any complications?" Adrian asked, voice measured. Marcus's gaze was steady. "None. She's unharmed, but there's chatter your family, the board, they've noticed her absence from public galleries. Questions are surfacing." Adrian nodded, folding his hands. "I'll handle it." He reached for a folder stamped with Elle's name. "Bring her here." In a penthouse suite atop the Blackwood Tower, Elle sat at a marble breakfast bar, Luna pacing behind her. Half-finished pancakes cooled on her plate. The city's hum drifted through the open windows, incongruous to the tension coiled around her chest. Her phone vibrated, an email from an unrecognized address. Subject line, Blackwood Tower, Conference Room B, 2 p.m. No signature. Only an address and a time. Elle's pulse kicked up again. "She wants you to go," Luna said, tapping the screen. "She being they," Elle swallowed. "What choice do I have?" At precisely 2 o'clock, she stepped into the steel and glass elevator that hummed upward like a bullet train. The doors slid open to reveal a corridor so pristine it felt sterile, white walls, chrome accents, and the faint scent of ozone. She clutched her sketchbook as she followed a security guard to Conference Room B inside. Adrian stood by the window, back turned. He held her paintings in his hands, each one wrapped carefully in archival paper. The sight of them made Elle's breath hitch. He turned, face unreadable. "I'm sorry you were frightened," he began. "I should have introduced myself properly." Her voice emerged hoarse. "Who are you?" He set the bundles on the table, then sat opposite her, sliding back the paper to reveal the first painting, a storm-laden coastline at dusk, tinged with violet and gold. "You created these," Elle nodded, eyes wide. "They're mine." He met her gaze. "They were commissioned last year." She shook her head. "I never commissioned anything." Adrian exhaled slowly. "I did." He paused, as if weighing his next words. "I bought them because I needed to understand why your art felt familiar to me." Silence stretched as Elle's mind raced. "But how did you find me?" He stood, walking to the window overlooking the city. "I have a reputation for discretion. My family, the board, they invest in emerging artists under the radar. Your work surfaced in an auction catalog. I couldn't resist." His voice softened. "Then I saw them in person." He lifted the second painting, the silhouette atop a steel vessel, windswept and solitary. Elle felt a tremor. "That's my dream," she whispered. He nodded, eyes dark. "It was also my sister's dream." Elle's heart lurched. The sister she'd never known, yet painted without ever meeting, her late sister, whose portrait haunted Blackwood family lore. Do you know me?" Adrian's shoulders tensed. "Not until now, but art knows truths we bury. Your vision matched hers and mine." He turned fully to her. "I wanted to protect those pieces, and you before rumors could tarnish their meaning." Luna's voice whispered in Elle's mind, danger. Yet compassion bloomed in her chest at Adrian's confession. He spoke of grief and longing, of a sister lost to pressure and ambition. "Why bring them to me?" she asked. He crossed the room in 2 strides, placing a single painting between them. A close-up study of a tear on porcelain skin. "This one spoke of vulnerability," he said, "of someone who needed to be seen." His gaze softened. "I want to be that person for you." For a heartbeat, the world stilled. Then a sharp knock at the door shattered the moment. Security pushed in, faces taut. "Mrs. Blackwood requests your presence," one guard said to Adrian. He nodded, sudden steel returning to his posture. To Elle, he offered a curt bow. "Thank you for trusting me. I'll explain everything soon." Elle stood, chest tight with questions left unsaid. As Adrian followed the guards out, the door clicked shut, leaving her alone with her paintings and a swirl of confusion. What is his true motive? What pressures swirl behind the Blackwood name? And can she trust the man who chased her through the night to keep her safe? What would you do in Elle's shoes? Comment below. A hush settled over Blackwood Manor's drawing room as Elle was escorted inside, clutching her sketchbook like a talisman. The space was grand, Baroque molding, towering windows draped in velvet, and antique vases the size of urns. Outside, English gardens stretched like emerald carpets beneath a slate-gray sky. She was led to a seating area where Lady Vivian Blackwood reclined on a chaise, expression unreadable, like a marble statue carved with impatience. Her ice-blue eyes assessed Elle without warmth. Beside her, Julian Blackwood, Adrian's elder brother, stood with arms crossed, jaw clenched. A silent battle of wills flickered between them. Lady Vivian's voice, cool and clipped, cut through the air. "Miss Navarro, thank you for coming." She gestured to a nearby table where coffee and pastries waited untouched. "Please, sit." Elle lowered herself into an upholstered armchair, legs pressed together. She felt Luna's caution flutter in her chest, but she forced herself to look composed. "Thank you." Lady Vivian folded her hands in her lap. "My son tells me you have a unique gift." Her lips quirked. "A gift that could influence perception of art, of reputation, of property." Julian's voice rumbled. "We've invested heavily in the Blackwood Gallery. If you're to be the face of our new modern wing, we need assurances." He stepped forward, looming over Elle. "Are you prepared to sign a non-disclosure, to transfer certain rights?" Elle's stomach clenched. The words "transfer rights" felt like chains closing around her art, yet beneath the fear stirred a spark of defiance. "I created those paintings," she said, voice small but steady. "I alone own them." Julian's nostrils flared. "The moment you agreed to exhibit, certain legalities apply. Your contract, signed when you accepted last year's gallery invitation, contained clauses you likely overlooked." He tossed a sleek binder onto her lap. "Read." Elle opened the binder, hands shaking. Her eyes skimmed legal jargon, reproduction rights, trademark clauses, exclusive representation. It was a cage constructed in black ink. She looked up, heart pounding. "I never signed this." Lady Vivian's smile sharpened. "A handshake is binding in high society. Your presence at our events constituted acceptance." She leaned forward, gaze like a surgeon's scalpel. "We can elevate your career, Miss Navarro, or we can bury you under litigation." The chandelier above trembled as thunder rolled through the gardens. Elle clenched her fists, mind racing through every sleepless night of pursuit and pain. Behind the velvet curtains, she sensed the press pack, reporters sniffing for scandal like wolves. In that moment of crisis, a voice echoed through the hallway. "Mother Julian, that's enough." Adrian stepped in, rain-specked coat draped over one arm, his eyes locked on Elle before shifting to his family. "This isn't the way." Lady Vivian's posture stiffened. "Adrian, your interference is noted." He set the coat aside and offered Elle a gentle glance. "Leave her out of our battles." His voice, calm steel threaded with compassion, shifted the room's temperature. He turned to his mother. "If she's to be part of the Blackwood legacy, it will be on her terms." Silence fell, thick enough to taste. Julian's lips pressed into a thin line. Lady Vivian's eyes narrowed, then flicked to her son. "We'll discuss this later." Adrian motioned to Elle. "Shall we step outside?" She stood, legs unsteady, and followed him into the drawing room's arched doorway. Luna's protective presence lingered at her side in spirit. Outside, rose hedges dripped with rain, petals scattered like confessions. He led her along a stone path to a secluded pavilion, its latticework walls cloaked in ivy. There, away from prying eyes, he turned to her, voice low. "I'm sorry," Elle braced herself. "For what?" "For my family's methods, for putting you in the middle of our power plays." He ran a hand through damp hair. "I thought I could manage them, but they moved faster than I did." She swallowed the lump in her throat. "Why are you really helping me?" Adrian studied the rain-kissed roses. "Because your art reminds me of someone I lost. And because I believe in you." His gaze found hers. "I can't let you be collateral damage." A single droplet of rain splashed onto his lapel. Elle's heart fluttered at the rare vulnerability in his admission. Yet a question hovered between them, unspoken but urgent. If she aligned with the Blackwood name, could she remain true to her own vision? Thunder rolled again as the sky darkened. In that charged silence, Elle realized the stakes had escalated far beyond an underground garage or a stolen painting. She was caught in a storm of legacy, power, and passion, a storm she could either weather or flee. Will she stay and fight for her art, at any cost, or will she run before the tempest consumes her? Late that evening, the city lights shimmered like a constellation of fallen stars as Adrian led Elle through a discreet service entrance into his private library. Rows upon rows of leather-bound tomes formed walls of whispered secrets. A single lamp bathed a mahogany desk in honeyed glow, casting tall bookshelves into twilight. He poured 2 cups of chamomile tea, the steam spiraling upward like a soft sigh. The porcelain cups clinked gently as he set one before Elle, whose fingers brushed his as she accepted it. The contact was fleeting but electric, an unspoken promise caught in the lamplight. They settled into high-backed armchairs facing each other. Outside, the wind howled through the estate's eaves like distant lament. Inside, the only sound was the soft clink of teaspoons and the faint rustle of turning pages. Elle cradled her cup, letting its warmth seep into her chilled bones. She studied Adrian's profile, the firm line of his jaw, the thoughtful crease between his brows. She'd glimpsed vulnerability in him before, but here, in the hush of the library, it felt raw and unguarded. He dipped a fingertip into his tea, swirling the amber liquid. "I wanted to show you this," he said, pulling from beneath the desk a narrow portfolio tied with a ribbon. He untied it and lifted out a single sheet of parchment. A delicate drawing of a young woman reading beneath a blossoming tree. Elle's breath caught. "It's beautiful. It belonged to my sister," Adrian said softly. "She drew it when she was your age." His voice trembled on the last word. He searched Elle's eyes. "I never got to thank her for showing me this world." Elle lifted the pencil strokes close, tracing the curve of the tree's branches. "She had talent," she murmured, emotion tinging her voice. "And heart," Adrian nodded. "I think that's why I found your art so compelling. You share the same soul." A hush settled between them as rain pattered against the windows. Elle sipped her tea, words swirling in her mind like storm clouds. She wanted to ask him, truly ask, why he'd risk the board's wrath and his family's scorn for her. But the silence felt sacred, a fragile bridge forming between 2 kindred spirits. Outside the windows, the rose gardens glowed under lamplight, petals trembling with dew. Adrian rose and moved to the shelves, selecting a small, leather-bound volume. He returned to Elle and held it out. A first-edition folio of her favorite poet, lines underlined in pencil. "You mentioned this book once," he said. "I thought you might like it." Tears pricked Elle's eyes. "How did you?" He smiled softly, a rare curve of warmth in tired eyes. "I'm observant." Their hands met over the gift, and in that moment the library walls seemed to fade away. Hearts beat in hushed harmony, 2 artists seeking solace in creation, and perhaps in each other. Yet as Elle touched the cover, a faint echo drifted down the corridor, the distant click of heels on marble. Startled, she pulled back. Adrian stiffened. The library door creaked open. A silhouette paused in the frame, someone watching. And in that breathless moment, the slow burn between them flickered in the hush, threatened by secrets yet to surface. Who has come to interrupt their fragile peace? What would you do in Elle's shoes? Comment below. A hush falls over the rooftop garden as Elle slips out of the service elevator, seeking refuge among moonlit hedges and lanternlit paths. The night air is cool, perfumed with night-blooming jasmine, and the distant hum of the city feels miles away. She clutches her sketchbook to her chest, images of Adrian's private library still dancing behind her eyelids. Soft footsteps echo on the stone pavers, and Elle senses another presence before she sees him. Marco Hayes emerges from the shadows, tall and angular, his tailored jacket shimmering with dew. His dark eyes blaze with accusation. "So this is where you hide from me," he says, voice low and ragged. Elle's heart twists. Marco was her mentor once, a brilliant, magnetic artist who taught her how to see light in darkness, and also the man she loved until ambition fractured their bond. She steadies her voice. "I'm not hiding, I needed air." He moves closer, the lantern light catching the sharp planes of his face. "You've changed," he accuses. "Since you met him, you walk with your head held higher, like you on the world." His gaze flicks beyond Elle, to the glass walls of Blackwood Tower, glinting like a fortress. "You've traded your soul for his approval." Elle's chest tightens. She recalls nights when Marco pushed her hard, demanding perfection, leaving her breathless with both inspiration and dread. "I never traded anything," she says. "I just refused to be crushed by your ambition." A bitter laugh escapes Marco. "And now you dangle in the orbit of yet another man of power." He gestures toward the helipad lights far above. Doesn't matter if his empire is stronger than mine. You think his money buys safety. It buys chains. Her jaw clenches. Adrian cares about me, she insists. He saved my work, something you never bothered to understand. His eyes flash. I understood you perfectly. He steps so close she sees the tremor in his voice. I protected you. I fought for you. But you pushed me away, spilled champagne on my dreams. Silence blooms between them like a garden of thorns. The night sky presses down, and Elle feels the pull of old wounds and new hopes colliding in her chest. Marco's gaze softens for a heartbeat into something tender and regretful. I loved you, he confesses, voice raw, and I still do. Before she can answer, a distant chime rings from the Blackwood helipad below. The reminder of Adrian's world cuts through the moment. Marco steps back, coat swirling around him like a shadow. Choose, he says, voice thick with longing. Me or him. Elle's breath falters. Moonlight glints on her tears as she realizes the choice she faces. The familiar ache of the past or the uncertain promise of something new. What would you do in Elle's shoes? Comment below. The day of the grand press conference dawns bright and unforgiving. Outside the Blackwood Tower, reporters cluster behind velvet ropes, cameras pointed like hawks. Flashbulbs stutter as Adrian strides onto the stage beside Lady Vivian, her smile a practiced mask. Elle stands off to the side, trembling in a tailored suit that feels too stiff, too foreign. A hush falls as Adrian raises a hand. Thank you all for coming, he begins, voice resonant. Today, we unveil the Blackwood Foundation's pledge to emerging artists worldwide, starting with Miss Elle Navarro. Applause ripples through the crowd. Elle forces a smile. Lady Vivian steps forward with a document. To solidify this partnership, we ask Miss Navarro to sign this agreement, she announces, tone cold. Reporters murmur. Elle's stomach twists as the contract is unfurled, a legal labyrinth of rights transfers and branding clauses. Before she can react, Marco appears in the aisle, eyes blazing. Stop! He shouts, sending cameras swinging in his direction. Security converges, but Marco strides forward, holding up a stack of Elle's early sketches. This is my work, he declares. She stole it from my studio. Chaos erupts. Reporters jostle for position, microphones thrust forward. Lady Vivian's lips tighten. Adrian's expression darkens as he steps between Marco and Elle. That's not true, he says, voice steady. These pieces belong to Miss Navarro. Marco presses forward, voice rising. I have proof. These are watermarked with my seal dates, drafts, everything. He brandishes a USB drive, tossing it onto the podium. Silence crashes down. A technician plugs it into a screen. Scanned documents, timestamps, lab notes, everything Marco claims. The reporters lean in, hungry for scandal. Elle's vision tunnels. In her mind, she replays nights alone in her studio, hands stained with acrylics, no witness to these private moments. Tears sting her eyes. This is a lie, she whispers, voice cracking. Adrian turns to her, eyes blazing with fierce protectiveness. He steps forward, sweeping the USB to the floor. Ignore this, he commands. Go on, he turns back to the crowd. Whatever fabrications have been presented, I stand by Miss Navarro. Her art is her own, born of her talent and her soul. He pauses, and reporters strain to catch every syllable. The foundation will release a full audit of her works, all originals and drafts, to the public record tomorrow. A murmur moves through the press. Lady Vivian's lips tremble in fury, but she remains silent. Marco's shoulders slump as security moves him out. In the charged silence, Adrian reaches for Elle's hand. His thumb brushes her knuckles. You're safe, he murmurs. For now. Elle exhales, the tension receding like a tide. Cameras flash one final time, capturing her defiant smile. The moment cements itself in history, a billionaire standing up to his own family to protect the artist he believes in. What will tomorrow bring? Comment below. Twilight drapes the Blackwood estate in a violet glow as Elle stands on a terrace draped with fairy lights. Rain drips softly from olive trees, and a hush lingers, broken only by the soft murmur of fountains. In her hand she holds a simple silver locket, its chain cool against her palm. Adrian approaches, offering a single white rose. His eyes, usually guarded, shine with unspoken emotion. He kneels before her, voice quiet. I promised I'd give you my world, no strings attached. He lifts the locket. Inside is her portrait. Elle opens it, revealing the delicate pencil sketch of Adrian's sister. A single tear glimmers on its cheek, rendered in exquisite detail. Her breath catches. It's gorgeous. He slides the locket onto her chain, closing it around her neck. Just like you. He rises, hands finding hers. I can't promise the storm will pass. My family, the world, they're not easy to navigate. His thumb sweeps over her cheek. But I promise every moment I spend with you will be honest. She presses her forehead to his. History's weight melts away in the hush. I believe you, she whispers. They stand together as thunder rumbles in the distance, a shared heartbeat echoing their unity. Then, a distant trumpet signals the estate staff to begin the gala's second act. A flash mob of dancers emerging from the hedges, swirling like living petals around them. Laughter bubbles from Elle's lips as Adrian sweeps her into an impromptu dance. The world falls away, leaving only the warmth of connection and the promise of something real. What would you do in her shoes? Comment below. Morning sunlight spills into a renovated warehouse on the city's edge, transforming peeling brick walls into canvases of hope. Inside, talented young artists cluster around easels and workbenches, their eyes alight with excitement. Canvases bloom with color, abstract dreams given form. Elle stands before them, paint-splattered overalls replacing her gala attire. Her voice is gentle yet firm as she welcomes her first class to the Navarro Art Collective, an art therapy workshop for those with big dreams but no resources. Here, she says, your vision matters. Your story deserves color. In the back, a figure in a paint-smeared smock watches with quiet pride, Adrian incognito, elbow deep in community projects. He offers reassurance to a teen struggling with a perspective sketch. Try shifting your horizon, he suggests softly. When the teen looks up, his nod and smile say more than any critique. Elle guides a young woman through mixing blues to capture morning light. A boy learns to carve clay under Luna's supportive gaze. Every student's progress is celebrated, every failure embraced as part of growth. Laughter and soft music fill the air, weaving a tapestry of communal passion. At midday, local reporters arrive for a feel-good feature. Elle's cheeks flush as she explains her vision. Art can heal. It can unite us across divides. This space is proof. Cameras pan over Adrian quietly installing a donated kiln, his quiet dedication speaking volumes. After the cameras leave, Elle pauses by a half-finished mural depicting two figures, one in jeans and canvas shoes, the other in a tailored suit, standing side by side under a shared sky. She traces the outline and whispers, "Thank you." A voice behind her says, "For what?" She turns to find Adrian, unmasked now, offering her a cup of coffee. The concession manager had remembered her favorite roast. She smiles, warmth blooming in her chest. "For believing." He wraps an arm around her shoulder. "Always." As students return to their work, the camera lifts, revealing the mural's expansive colors, a testament to partnership, passion, and possibility. Soft piano chords emerge as the narrator's voice returns, resonant and inviting. Thank you for joining us on this journey through art, ambition, and the ties that bind two unlikely hearts. Elle and Adrian's story reminds us that true connection transcends power and privilege. A montage plays. The crystal chandeliers, the storm-lit garage, the press conference drama, the tender library moments, and finally the bustling workshop where dreams take flight. Each image pulses with emotion. The narrator leans in, warm as a confidant. If you've loved this billionaire love friction tale, strike that like button. Share your favorite moment in the comments. Was it Elle's stand at the press conference or Adrian's library confession? A gentle crescendo rises. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss our next emotional roller coaster. Until then, keep dreaming, keep creating, and remember, every masterpiece begins with a single brushstroke. The music fades on a hopeful note, leaving listeners suspended between what was and what could be. The screen fades to black, but the story's echo lingers, a promise that love and art will always find a way. Thanks for joining. Like, share, and subscribe for the next emotional roller coaster.